Hi everyone, this is Russ speaking, and today I'm going to be playing a little bit of Automation, the car Company Tycoon game, while I'm basically editing my way through the monster of an episode I had lined up for Hearts Vine because I lost track of time and ended up producing 2 hours of content. So there's that. But for today, we're going to get a little bit of Automation. Because Automation, if you haven't heard of it, is a game currently in early access that is about designing your own car company. And it's really quite psychotically detailed. And they recently actually put out their first alpha beta of the Light campaign. Light, so called because the sales model isn't indicative of the final campaign, but it's the bare, it's the working prototype for the Tycoon game loop. Right. So, let's get a game started. We'll start a new game here. And here we go. The Light campaign is not representative of what the Grand campaign will be like. During early access, this serves as a testing ground for new features added to the game. It is lacking many of the core game mechanics planned for the Grand campaign. The launch features are basic campaign flow and scoring, basic factory setup and required add-ons, 3 fictional regions and markets, minimal staff management, simplified model and trim production, simplified temporary sales model in the biggest quotes you can imagine, simplified tech pool interaction, simplified region economics. Coming soon, we'll have R&D and engineering and familiarity built in, and please report any bugs you find, and I'll be sure to do it. Basically, right now there's no R&D, so your team doesn't actually gain experience. You just sort of start the game with a tech pool, with stuff you just magically know. Here, I'll show you. So on the left here, you have your company tech pool, and this won't ever improve or degrade over the course of the game. But let's take a look at this screen. Currently, there are, as it said, 3 regions. There's Gasimia, which is a fictional big flat country with good wide roads, high purchasing power, average taxes and running costs at low to medium fuel prices. Its people have average environmental awareness, a strong focus on safety, and a rich car and racing culture. They prefer utility sport, pony muscle, and off-road, and they dislike city, light sport, and light delivery. If you ask me, that sounds like America. They like their utility, they like their big fat cars with the rear-wheel drive, and they dislike economic cars and small cars. Fair enough. If we cut, you also notice that they have different tax rates and wages. That will come to the decision as well. So over here we have Arahana, which is a fictional, medium-sized, hilly country, that's important, with continental climate and average width, poor quality roads. People have low purchasing power, but taxes and fuel prices are low. Environmental awareness is also low, and the people don't care much for car safety. So they like anything that's budget. They like their off-road, the utility, and the family utility. They just like anything premium, city, GT, hyper, and luxury. Now, I don't know where this is supposed to be in particular, but it models a country that with a medium to low GDP that can't really maintain its roads, so the cars need to be made of iron to withstand that. Now at the bottom here, we have Fruinia, which is a small, hilly, coastal country with narrow, average quality roads, average purchasing power, average taxes and running costs, but high fuel prices, so economy is important. Its people have high environmental awareness and a strong focus on safety. An average car culture doesn't bar a massive interest in racing. And they like the city, family sport, light sport, track sport, super light, so supercars, light delivery vehicles. They dislike the utility, family utility sport, pony muscle, and not off-road. This, if you ask me, would be like France or Germany, circa 46. Like, it would be a car, it would be a place that has medium average quality roads, sort of middling taxes and middling running costs, but high environmental awareness and like real big on, it's pretty much continental Europe, actually. So I think I will start in Fruinia, simply because what my game plan here is I'm considering starting off in the delivery sector, because you can sell a lot of cars into it early, and get some capital that way. And after I've done that, I intend to either open up into commuter or family or city cars, depending on how the markets are going, because this game does actually have an economic cycle built in, including the boom-bust cycle, all three major economic cycles are in there. I forget their names. There is a video by one of the developers, Killrob, explaining all of this, and I'll make sure to link it down below. So, we're starting in Fruinia, and we're starting in light delivery. Now, going across our UI, we have our company tech pool, our team, which is our team of engineers, cash and competition, which are sort of like your difficulty sliders, and then an overall measure of how difficult the game will be. Now, you see there's a measure for start year, because we can actually start later, and that does drive the difficulty up. If you're wondering why, it's because there's more cars on the market, so breaking into an established market is much harder, because the game does currently actually model market awareness. So the more you sell into a particular demographic, the more people are going to know about your brand. Like, if I said Ferrari, every single one of you just pictured a red sports car that is super loud and goes super fast. That's what I mean by market awareness. Ferrari are known for supercars, hypercars, and convertible supercars. And they're very well known for that because they've been doing it for like 40, 50 years. That's what will happen here. You'll start with some 20-30% market awareness, and it will build as you sell cars into it. And the more the people care about your cars, the more competitive they are. If it's a luxury car, the more prestigious it is. If it's a running car, the more reliable it is. The more the market awareness is going to turn around, the more cars you're going to sell, and this reinforces. And you can, if you manage your resource well, and if you're reasonably lucky, become the dominant market force there. Alright. So, Company Tech talks about what your company is good at. Each point in Company Tech is going to unlock extra stuff so 1 year earlier, that many years earlier. And it will also give you a free tech pool which you can use to up the quality of that part. So if we were looking at our bottom end, that would be the quality of your con rods and your drive shaft. And by high quality, that means it's smoother, uses a little less fuel, and while a tiny bit more expensive to maintain, much more reliable, right? Now, you're probably wondering, hey, wait a minute, doesn't that mean I can just sort of whale points into something to get stuff super early? Well, you can, but each point you put into a tech costs that many points. Arithmetic progression. So we start at 1 point costs 1, 2 points cost 1 plus 2, which is 3. 3 points cost 1 plus 2 plus 3, 6. 4 points cost 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, and so on and so forth. Now, if I were to just push this up to 70, you'd see that actually shows a tech and team difficulty of 100%. So the standard that the game expects you to start with, what it thinks is normal difficulty, is 70 points of tech and team, because your team comes out of the same tech pool. I won't take any engineers for ease of use right now, but I am considering a company tech. So if I'm going to start in the light delivery sector, and then move into city or family sport or something of that description, maybe move into even supercars later, I'm going to need reliable cars. And for reliable cars, you need, well, before they're reliable, note the high fuel prices, which means I should probably invest in a fuel system, because having an early, better tech for the fuel system means getting more power out of my supercars and getting more economy out of everything else. So we'll go with that. But with getting more power, we're going to need sturdier bits, because cast iron parts are generally reasonably fragile, and even drop forged steel is unable to take the sort of forces you're going to be throwing through it later with supercars, especially if you really want to push it in the late game. So I'm going to put a little bit of tech into bottom end and top end. For those of you who aren't that familiar with cars, bottom end refers to the drive shaft, which is the thing that actually drives the transmission, and the con rods, which connect the connecting rods. They connect the drive shaft. They connect the drive shaft to the pistons. The top end refers to the pistons and the valves that let fuel and air in. So those are the things that actually make an engine go. Aspiration refers to forced induction, things like turbo and supercharging. The game currently doesn't have superchargers and uses an old turbo model, but it's still reasonably indicative until the sort of 80s. I won't put any tech into this right now because it's going to be a while until that becomes a big deal. And it's basically, the payoff is too late. Exhaust is pretty obvious, everything that comes out of your engine and then eventually leaves your car. Better exhaust means you can run higher pressures inside the exhaust and get more fuel economy out of it. Not really required for us. Jumping over here, we have our drivetrain, which is from the drive shaft to the wheels. So it's your gearbox, it's your mostly your gearbox, but it also includes the differential if you have one in the car. And yes, you can just have an open diff on some cars, and it is often much cheaper to do so, especially in the 40s. So that might work. Wheels and brakes, pretty self-explanatory, better wheels and better brakes. This is reasonably important early in the game because the state of soft rubber and the state of drum brakes at the start of the game are miserable, and anything that generates sort of above 100 horsepower is impossible to stop. But we'll come back to that because it becomes less of a troublesome once you get disc brakes, because disc brakes are significantly more powerful. Aerodynamics speaks for itself, and suspension. Now this is one I want to put a few points into. Mostly because your city and your, or not your light delivery, but your city cars and your family cars are going to be cars that you want to be comfortable. And a good way for something to be comfortable is to get that hydropneumatic suspension, which is what Citroens use for reference, because it's very soft. It's very good at dispersing large and quick forces. You can go over a pothole and it won't try to break your spine, the way that like a McPherson strut would. Not a McPherson strut. That's a different thing. The way that just standard gas monotubes would. So the body refers to the build quality of the outside fittings, so the panels, the doors, the windows, stuff like that. Its usefulness is not modeled yet because you don't have environmental corrosion in the game yet. When that has been modeled, it will help your steel, your galvanized, and your corrosion-resistant steel not break and rust and fall apart. Your fixtures are everything that's not the direct body. So it's your lights, your blinkers, your vents. Currently, it's just a way to get more cooling into the car with smaller vents and better aero. While a little bit of a worry for supercars, not that big a worry for me because I'm in other markets too. And we come to chassis. There's three major chassis designs. There's the ladder chassis, where you have a panel on which everything is built upon like a in the style of a ladder, in that there's uprights and then horizontals joining the uprights. The issue with ladders is they warp very easily, but they're also reasonably they're not labor intensive to produce, and you can make them by hand, importantly. Apart from this, there's monocoques, which is what we have in most modern cars. Monocoque means one shell in French. And basically, it's a single chassis that has been stamped out of steel, usually, or stamped out of whatever material you're making it out of, with the exception of the carbon fiber, because that's an exception. Stamped out of it, and they're much stiffer because they're made from a solid piece of material. And they don't tend to warp around the joints, because they don't have any joints. But they require steel forges to make, and steel forges are remarkably expensive, at least to set up. They're reasonably cheap to maintain. So until you have the capital to get monocoques going, it's wise to stay away from them. The final design is space frames, which refers to a chassis made out of essentially steel piping. It can only ever be made by hand, which is troublesome, but it is breathtakingly light. Incredibly light. So we may have to go with some chassis stuff, just so we can get the monocoque a little earlier, and so we can get carbon fiber earlier, so we can really push into that hypercar market. Now, interior refers to the interior that isn't the entertainment system. It's the seats, and the, yeah, pretty much the seats and the driver assists. Things like ABS, traction control, stuff like that. Entertainment is pretty obvious. It'll let you unlock entertainment options earlier, which is pretty cool. Being the only car on the market with a CD drive, or hell, even a cassette drive if you go early enough, is a nice thing to show off. It's like, look at me, I have the money, right? And finally, safety. Pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to drop 3 points into this, because Fruinia really, really like their safety. That leaves me about 12 points shy of our goal of 70. And now I can go back to wheels and brakes. Useful in the early game, not so useful in the late game. So it all depends. I think I will leave it alone for now, because adding quality to your wheels and brakes isn't actually that expensive. So we'll leave that. Now we can go back and add stuff to other things. I'm considering adding to interior and entertainment some points, just so we can actually go into the premium market, because initially you will only be able to sell into the country of your origin, but you will unlock the other countries as time goes on. So for Gasmia it's Fruinia then Ahana. I think for Fruinia it's Ahana then Gasmia. So that might be a little bit tricky for us, but we'll see how it goes, eh? But going back to my point, it might be worthwhile to spend some money into entertainment, because even though Ahana likes budget cars, if we can create something that's cheap and has a good entertainment system, people in the sort of in the family areas are going to gulp it up. So I think that's worth dropping a few points into. And that leaves us 6 points. So we can put 2 things to 2 or 1 thing to 3. I'll increase something from 5 to 6. So that would be chassis or fuel system. No, I think I will use something else. I think the play here is we go 1, 2. So we have a reasonably wide spread, focusing only on the chassis this much seems a bit... Oh, I didn't put any into drivetrain. I meant to put things into drivetrain because drivetrains are important. Let's do this. There we go. And now we're left with 1 single solitary point. I think we can leave it at 69. I don't feel like having 1 point in anything, and this will do for now. Okay, I won't have anyone on my team. And moving right, we have cash and competition. Okay. So your starting cash is pretty obvious. Start with less, and you have to be more careful with your money. Now, I'm watching a Let's Play of Killrob, one of the developers of this game, play through it, and that's what actually inspired me to start doing these Let's Plays. So I figure, now, I didn't develop this game, but you know what, I might as well play it on hard mode, because if I die horribly, you can watch that and laugh, and if I don't, well, you can also watch that and marvel at how I'm not getting my ass kicked. So, this is the sort of settings he played. He actually played it insane. He played it 2.18 by pushing these even further, and I think he started with 50 million? Yeah, something like that. Yeah, 50 million I think is what he started with. Though, the issue lies in that 50 million you're not able to do much at all. And it means you have to open up into that premium segment right away, because they're the only people who can pay you enough money to actually get you off the ground. So I'm going to start with 200. It's a little more, but I think it'll work. And I'm suddenly trying to decide if I actually want to be in Gasmia, because while they don't like a light sport, they actually have a reasonable market for just premium, luxury premium cars like that. But nah, that'd be too much like the developers' Let's Play, so let's start making delivery vehicles. And we have a company name, don't we? Yes, it's Griffin Motors. Don't know why I chose that. We'll just go with it. Okay, so this is the main gameplay screen. Here it'll list every car that you currently have in production, or engineering, or that you've cancelled. And there's multiple tabs. So we have sales, how many sales we've made in the last month in these categories. We have market awareness, and you see we start with 30 market awareness in every market. And if you look at the numbers, that's how many cars we can sell into that market per month. Per month, importantly. So if we look over at super and hypercars, they don't really exist right now, and they won't for a while. That's what these grayed out ones mean. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait, ponies existed? Well, yeah, they do, but only in certain countries. So ponies and muscles are a thing in Gasmia, and they might be a thing in Ahana. Yeah, they're sort of a thing in Ahana. But they're not a thing in Fruinia, because, well, they have no interest in this car. Like, those cars exist, they have no interest in them. Same as the utility segment and the off-road segment, because we have nice roads, and we don't have anywhere you really want to go off-road, so why have an off-road segment? There's an off-road budget for, like, farmers, but that's about it, really. So, looking down here, this is the market that we want to open up into. So, light delivery, heavy delivery, and heavy utility. Possibly with some off-road utility, but that's reasonably small. We want to hit that light delivery market. 2,000 a month is the possible number of sales. We have 30% market awareness, so we should be able to pick up 600 of those sales if we make a competitive car. And, oh wait, I made a mistake. So, looking over here, this is our available market share. This is the total market share. There's like 6,000 cars per month in light delivery. And here we can see the general market trends. So everything seems to be trending up slightly, except for delivery. Over the last year, because the game starts with a year of simulation already been done, this has trended down 7%. So let's look at the region economy, right? No, it's actually done 5 years. I apologize. So if you look at our commercial sector, the commercial sector has gone up a little bit. There's been a little bit of a expansion, and then there's been a corrective motion. I hope that it doesn't correct past its starting point and turns into like a proper expansion. But we'll see how that goes. Looking at our budget's staying relatively flat. Normal's actually experiencing some expansion, though it may correct if commercial is shrinking. And premium and luxury are generally more exaggerated forms of the normal model, because these people care about their money more, and they're less willing to spend it during bad times and more willing to spend it during good times. Alright, so let's start making that car. Let's hit that new car button. Yeah, we can call this Model 1. We said we want a delivery van, and a delivery van we shall have. We want it to be a reasonably light delivery vehicle, so I'll keep it short rather than like pulling it all the way out. It's a reasonably short delivery bus. Pull the door in. There we go. You know what? Actually, make the door big. Yeah, that's easier to access. We'll do this. And we'll move over. So, here we have our first choice. Ladder or space frame? This ladder? Yeah. Heavy, poor stiffness, and relative lack of safety in a crash. But they're easy to build in space frames, which are like, let me see if I can show you what a space frame looks like. It's steel piping. That's a nightmare to build. I would rather have the ladder. Nice and simple. Made of steel. Double wishbones in the front, because that's the only option. And, oh, so I'm probably going with the solid axle leaf in the back. And panels. Here's the problem. We make it from steel panels, we need to buy steel presses. For now we will, because I think we can get away with paint for steel presses, but we'll see. And let's up our tech here. And you can see what the tech does when I hover over it, so better sportiness, comfort, prestige, and safety. Prestige we don't care about. Comfort and safety and sportiness? Sure, I'll go for it. Alright, let's design this car. Okay, and there we have it. Our little car. Actually, those headlights are too small. There we go. Our little car. Alright, let's go forward. Sure, we can control it. Trim 1. So you can have multiple trims of each car, where a trim designates possibly a different drivetrain, a different body model, where you have options like you could have a convertible and a standard, you could also have an automatic manual. Things like this. Trims, because they share a lot of factory tooling with each other, are cheaper to make than having separate cars, and they let you expand into similar archetypes without too much trouble. Because different trims can also have different suspensions. So you can make something that's designed for, like, freighting, right? While also creating a family mover just by changing the suspension and the springs used, dampeners, and by adding more seats. Right? Want to go with a rear-wheel drive because it's cheaper and takes up less space, and has lower engineering time. Alright. Nothing fancy here. i3 from cast iron, push rods overhead. Okay. Note that we do have dual overhead cams because they did exist at this time. They also take, well, they take a while to engineer. Overhead cams and direct acting overhead cams do not. However, they all cost more, and they produce more power. We don't want power. At all, if we can avoid it. Like, if we generate power, we can't stop that car. I will try with direct actings, simply because they're actually, easier to engineer. Because they're direct acting. It's a set of springs on a intake and outtake valve on a camshaft. It's incredibly simple. Alright, so this was our bottom end. Sorry, this was our bottom end. No, I lied. Sorry, that was our body. This is our bottom end. So our crank, our con rods, connecting rods, and our pistons. Pistons do count in the bottom end. I'll add tech to that. This is our top end. The compression on these, the compression ratio on these pistons, which we need to put down quite significantly because it's the 40s. The cam profile, which is how far down these cams get pushed, as well as how long they stay open, like how many degrees of this turn they stay open, will affect many things. A lower cam profile is going to give you a smoother ride and a smoother idle, as well as better emissions in most cases. While a high cam profile is going to reduce your required octane rating because you're going to burn more of your fuel better, and you're going to have better high-end performance because the valves won't be open for such a short period of time that you're choking the engine, which is what happens if your cam profile is too low or your valves can't let enough engine air in, or enough fuel in for that matter. But it means having a super rough idle. Alright, let's pump out 10 into this. Naturally aspirated because turbos don't exist. And the fuel system. Carburetors. Just now we're in the 40s, can you tell? Alright, I'm going to use a single barrel eco because the one thing that the delivery segment likes more than anything else is having good fuel economy. If you have good fuel economy, they will excuse anything else. We'll push the RPM limit down because, well, once again, it's the 40s. Quality up. Great. I think I'll show you what quality is. Alright, we're going to use, I think tubular, simply because they'll provide a slightly better economy rating than the short casts or the cast logs. I think a 1.5 inch exhaust, baffled mufflers for minimum noise, and let's test that engine. So now we have an overlay of the engine. Anything that's sort of not green is restricting airflow and choking the engine. Sometimes you want to choke the engine, but that's a different story. So this is this shows if the air fuel mixture is too rich. This shows knocking. This means general issues with the engine, and something is like having its reliability lowered for having too high RPM and too high torque. So let's go back and fix this. It's generally a good idea to choke up your exhaust as much as you can without actually restricting airflow through it, because it provides better economy. You can actually choke this up further for the purpose of getting even higher economy, because at that point you actually begin rate limiting your flow limiting your engine. And what that means is there's only so much air and fuel that can pass through this engine at once. With a small exhaust, you restrict that amount because this is a pressurized system, meaning that you can decrease the power that an engine produces without actually messing with any of the internals. It's actually a really neat way to choke down a car that has too much power. And that's what we're going to do here. Now, if you look up here, where we have our power curve and our torque curve, our power curve is always going to, generally speaking, if you don't have a turbo, look like this curved line, this straight line. Start somewhere, end somewhere else. That's fine. Your torque curve says more about how it feels to drive than this does. A torque curve that starts low and increases steadily reflects a car that has a linear power progression and that is very responsive under your foot. Something that goes up too steeply, though, is going to be very hard to control because it's going to generate progressively more power as you rev. If you have a flat curve, that means it's equal response at all levels, good drivability, good sportiness. The ultimate comfort car is this sort of torque curve where you peak early and then slowly and gently curve downwards, meaning you can run if you're trying to race or push towards your next gear. You can get there without getting slammed into the back of your seat. It's a comfortable thing. I would rather have something flat and maybe even curving up a little bit, because that's what you want in a hauling vehicle. You want it to produce more and more power. Okay, so let's go back. There are a few things we need to look at. Our major concern right now is reliability, economy, and fuel octane. You'll notice that our regular leaded fuel gives us 92 fuel octane. We're currently using 91.2. And basically, fuel octane represents how much of the available energy we're burning. If we actually try to use too much of the available energy, the engine will start knocking, and that'll make it less reliable. It'll sound unpleasant and feel unpleasant. So let's not do that. The thing we can do though, let's retard these a little bit, okay? The thing we can do is up compression. That will up fuel octane and give us better economy, and this is what I generally do to the amount that you can. But we can also up quality if we need to. So I'm going to up to my free tech pool of 5, and you'll notice that yes, our fuel octane went. Oh, sorry. Ding. There we go. Our fuel octane went down. The material cost has gone up a little bit, but only by $1. And production units are about the same, and engineering time has gone up by 1/10 of a month. So like 3 days. That's fine. That's because that was in our free tech pool. If we actually push further, all of a sudden it got more expensive. If we push further than that, more expensive again. And this curves upwards at an exponential rate. Going to plus 15 almost doubles it. However, it's still not that expensive an engine, but let's not go there. We have no reason to. Alright. Back here we can probably push a little more compression out of our engine. There we go. And a little more ignition time. Yeah, there we go. So this is probably the best sort of economy we're going to get out of something like this. And the other option is moving to push rods. 446, 457. Yeah, let's go to push rods. Economy is always displayed in grams per kilowatt hour. So it's always indicative of your economy rather than your power per economy. Because if it were just like liters per 100, that would depend on how powerful your car is. A Ferrari is going to burn more per 100k than a Yaris, say. So we're better off with that, but we're even better off with an overhead cam. Unfortunately, overhead cams take a while to engineer and cost a lot to make. Well, they cost a bit to make. They cost more than this to make. So I think we'll just go with 2 push rods, cast iron, simple can be. And we want a engine that's reasonably reliable. 4550 is sort of what we're aiming for. That's what short cast does to us. It decreases our economy a wee bit, but it's also more expensive. But it does decrease how long, like the amount of man hours required to build it, and the engineering time. Now, we're in Fruinia, we can afford to exchange man hours for material cost, because man hours are cheap here. So I think using our tubular is fine. Alright, let's go forward. This is the trim design screen, and where we're going to decide what we do. It's going to be a manual single clutch. I think a 3-speed would be best. I should explain. Top speed is obviously top speed, that's fine. This shows our general power curve, and the yellow parts of these are where we're producing optimal power, so the maximum power for the amount of fuel we're putting in. Spacing refers to how tightly or loosely grouped the gears are. Very narrow spacing, such as this, is going to create a car that gets up to speed very quickly in its first gear, but you need to change gears very often as you go through. So creating a jerkier ride, but more direct power response. The more direct power response also means that you get more wheel slip, which is something to watch out for. For a delivery car, we want this as wide as possible, because that means we get huge amounts of power to get off the mark, then we can switch to a sort of cruising gear at whatever speed we need to cruise at. And I think I will make this an overdrive gear, so we can have economy out here. Differentials, I don't think we need any. It's an like this is not going to, I mean, it's a big bulky car, but differentials are expensive when we don't have a good one. We'll just go with that. We're going with hard life tires. Let's make them a little bigger, so that'll make them sturdier. Bigger rims, and let's push those out as far as we can, just so we can get, you know what, let's go back to 40, there we go. Alright, brakes, now for the fun part. None, no cooling, we need, let's say like 4 times as much for optimum reliability. This thing's not going to be going fast anyway. As for the seat choice, just go with 2. It's a delivery van after all, and basic interiors. Once again, delivery van, no entertainment, and advanced safety because they care about these things. And more so because it's going to protect the goods than it is the people, but hey. And we'll put our tech into our safety and our tech into our driver assists and entertainment type things. So, there we go. Stone springs, twin tube dampers, passive sway bars, probably looser in the rear. We'll go +4 here, and let's see how we did. 106. So this top number is competitiveness. And basically it's a ranking. It says compared to the most competitive car in the market, how well are you doing? Below that is the affordability ranking, which says if everyone were to want to buy a car, how many of them could afford it? And here we see we're much more competitive than the most competitive car currently on market, which is good. And we're reasonably affordable. 64% of people would be able to buy a car. Now, drawing this back a little bit, a little further. I'm just trying to find the sweet spot. There we go. That's our sweet spot, having an overdrive here. Now, what we're really going for here is, as you can see, economy, cargo volume. That's it. That's a really, and they do care a little bit about comfort. A little bit. Actually, let's, instead of delivery and heavy delivery, let's go light delivery and delivery. Because I know we'll do well in this. Because light delivery actually has a different sort of demand. They don't care about cargo volume, but they do care about utility. And the utility of the vehicle is a matter of a few things: how drivable it is, how much brake power it has. I need to fix that. And as well as how many seats it has. So let's see if we can actually get them to like it more by, yeah, we can. Adding more seats actually makes them like it more because it's a more utilitarian. I don't know the word for that. It has more utility. It is more utilitarian. That's not the word I want. Standard safety definitely costs less, and it's more, the car is less likely to break down. It even gives us better economy because our vehicle weight goes down. However, it does provide a little less desire. Because if you look at this, we have 44.8 for 166.8 versus 45.5 for 166. I think it may be worth it. What about no safety? Yeah, no, they don't like that. Alright, we'll go with actual safety. That's not that expensive after all. And pushing this a little further. actually not that expensive, $7. And a lot of production units. Yeah, we'll stay at +3. Okay, so here we have our important curves. We have our sort of suspension response curve and our drive response curve. S stands for sportiness, D stands for drivability. This is the response at speed. So at low speed, it's going to respond reasonably sportily, so it's going to respond well to you. And then as you reach your critical speed, it's going to approach this section, and then you have your point of sort of critical motion before understeer. This is a reasonably drivable curve. What you don't want is, let's see if we can turn this around. What we don't want, oh man, I can't turn, there we go, is this. This is not drivable under any circumstances, because if you go above that speed, you lose control of the car. It oversteers. You careen into a tree. So we want to drive drivability up to 1. And I guess we can do a little more rear camber. Yeah, that's good. The other thing to mind is that there isn't any oscillations here. So if you look at our suspension curve, our front wheel and rear wheels follow the same sort of motion. They'll jump up 1.5 centimeters, drop down, back to the original point, go up a little bit, and then trail back to normal. While our body, front and rear, is going to travel with delayed response, because that's the intention of this suspension system, over a more gradual curve. There's no weird oscillations where something doubles. This is reasonably comfortable. I mean, not that comfortable, but this is okay. Now the other thing is ride height. We don't want this car bottoming out. Bottoming out is bad. There we go, no bottom out. Okay, so let's look at our markets. We are very, very desirable as a car, but we're also not making any real sort of, what's the word for this? Markup yet. So let's add some sort of markup, and you'll notice everything's suddenly falling away. Let's go 40% markup. Now this is estimated because we haven't actually marked out the way we're going to manufacture it, the factories we need, etc., etc. So there's that. I think I want to stay above 100%, so I'm going to go with a 40% base. It does mean it's not that affordable for our light delivery users, but hopefully it's affordable enough. So here's our first project setup thing, where we have our model, the trim, what sort of type of production we want, currently just none full or available, how much funding we want to put into the project. Funding decreases the amount of time taken, but it also increases the amount of money required. And reliability costs money and makes the thing more reliable. So here's where we set up our factories. Kind of ugly for now, but hey, the game's in alpha. It's a perfectly servable thing. So we're going to buy a small plot for our car, and so we can buy a tiny engine manufactory, but I think we buy a small one because it just makes our life a little bit easier, because we can upgrade from a tiny factory to a small factory. So this is our car factory, and you can have a small, so your class, your subsize, so 1, 2, and 3 will all produce more cars and cost more to build. So we require the steel presses. If we didn't get the steel presses, so the steel presses are setting us back about 20 million, which is an impressive amount. But having steel presses means we can move into producing monocoques super early, So I think maybe we front the cost now and absorb it for later. So we'll make 37 cars a day. So we need something that can make 37 engines a day. A small factory can make like 87. So it's not really worth the trouble. I think we just go with our tiny factory for now and we upgrade when we have a bit more money. So 37.5 cars. I'm gonna up the QA threshold because I really want these cars to be reliable. 36.1, let's go 36 cars on 2 shifts. And then match the car, and it's matched. But I also want this to have the same sort of reliability, so match the car again. Okay, so we go forward, and so everything is suddenly higher again, because the early estimation tends to overestimate very highly, and that tends to work in our favor. Alright, so looking over here, we can actually push this a little higher, but our affordability is going down, so I think we leave it as it is and hope that market exposure gets us somewhere, because 40% is reasonably good. So 1960 for Ohana, 1970 for Casimir. Okay, so that's our layout. Interesting. Here we have our screen if we had more than one country to sell into, and the number of cars that are prognosticated, or predicted, to sell this trim in this region if sold at the current time and in the current markets. That's incredibly important to keep in mind. The markets could change by the time you finish engineering this thing. Companies have gone bankrupt that way. Alright, and the ratio of demand divided by production. Values above 1 mean you need to sell more than your factories are set to produce. So currently we make 1,080 something cars a month, and we could sell 6 times as many. That's a lot. Putting up the base markup means we can sell 5 times as many. That's a lot of cars. So let's take a look at the overall cost of this project. It's 186 million. We only have 200 million. We can go into debt for up to a year, but we will lose the game if we're in debt longer than 12 months. So let's take a look at our engineering and tooling. So we're going to finish engineering in 9 months. Oh no, we'll finish engineering later, but we'll start tooling here. Because outfitting a factory from scratch does take a while. It's going to cost us 1 million a month for the first couple of months, then 7 million a month until production starts. Let's see if we can make more cars. Alright, let's sign off on that project. Skip to when the car enters production. Yes. Ding. Play. How much money do we make? Nothing. Of course, we haven't sold any. Let's go here. 0. So this is how much demand there is. If it's positive, we're building a stock. If it's negative, there's a little more demand. So we sold 1,084 cars, and there's a little more stock. Maybe 4.5 million. Let's look at our sales. Let's see what we sold into. Heavy delivery, heavy utility, and family sport. That's surprising to me. Family sport doesn't seem the type to actually care about this. But I may be wrong. I have been wrong before. So, if we look at our market awareness, we are actually starting to break into markets. A little bit into heavy delivery, a little bit into heavy utility, and a little bit into family sport. That's how this game goes. We get a little bit of score for each car we sell at a profit. You'll notice demand is actually going up. We're at negative 0.10 cars now. That's weird. Is something happening with the commercial economy? Yes, it has finished correcting and is now expanding again. I know that's a little hard to see, but they started off low, they had a little bit of an expansion, they corrected, and now they're expanding again, which is good for us. Commercial expansion means that everything expands. And we have a predicted 5.3% expansion by year end. That's pretty cool. because once the commercial sector begins expanding, everything else begins expanding massively as well. 5 to 10% expansions? That's cool. I like that. So, we have our first Model 1, and it said it'd be somewhere in 51 when we would break even from it. I figured now that we've bought plots and toured out factories, we start making another car around 50, so we can push it into production in 51. While that's going on, I will explain this little graphic down here. For each region, you have a reputation and a prestige. Prestige is how, well, prestigious your car is. Does it look nice? Does it sound nice? Does it have a big fat subwoofer and a big fat engine? Stuff like that. My cars are down to the basics, but they do have a good reputation because they are very reliable. So that reputation will rise as people talk to each other about the car, and that prestige will fall, obviously. So, we look at the number of cars sold, 9.8 thousand cars almost. Delta reputation, so the change in reputation and the change in prestige. So, revenue, we brought in $100 million. Of that, $80 million was cost. So we paid $8 million in taxes, and we made $50 million in clean profit. So let's continue. And that will show up every year. Okay. So, I think we just skip ahead a little bit until we have a little more money, let's say about 150 mil, and then we'll start building again. If this gets too high, we can always pump up the price a little bit, and I think I may have to do that. Let's see how market awareness is improving. Market sizes. Oh, baby, I need to pause this. That's one hell of a boom. 20% growth in 1 year? What's happening to the economy? Let's look at the normal economy. Wow. So we started off at 0.2, which is a little low. We had a pretty massive actual, boom up here. It's not that steep a curve, but in reality, our economy increased by, our total economy output increased by 25%. It's corrected a little bit, but now it's rising again. I really hope this isn't a bubble, because when it pops, it's going to be horrific. So, let's hope against a bubble, and see where things take us. 17%, still growing. The moment that the commercial sector stops expanding, you can expect the rest to hit and stop expanding. It's 1950 now. You'll notice that we suddenly have 100% increase in super and convertible super. But they sell 0 cars a month. That's weird. Well, yeah, basically, Fruinia has just discovered the concept of a supercar, and people started to go, yeah, I want one of those. So, as time goes on, that market's going to expand, and if I feed into it, if you sell into a market, you can actually make it expand faster, because you can actually meet the demand. So, let's see what our sales are actually like. So yeah, we're not selling into light delivery at all, which is kind of weird. But that's because all of our sales are actually getting snapped up by family utility, family sport, delivery, and heavy utility. We don't actually have enough to sell into those other markets. And that's good. I mean, it's also bad, but it's good. So, total profit of 104 million. About halfway through this year, I reckon. Yeah. June. So let's make our next car. I'm gonna make a new car for this new era. Let's see. This has stopped expanding, which means that the market is correcting. Regional commercial. Yeah, the market's starting to correct. I can only hope it doesn't correct too far. So when I build this next model, I'm going to keep it reasonably cheap where I can. So let's do it. New car. We should have access to Gee, I will wait until 1951 just to see what happens with the economy. let's make our new car. We should have access to monocoques now. I think I'm gonna make it on the same chassis. And we'll make it big this time because we're selling into family utility, so why the hell not? In fact, it may be time to actually build 2 trims. But we'll see how we go. Monocoques. Because monocoques, while like I said, an expensive setup, but we've already bought the steel presses, so we can just start making monocoques. We now have fiberglass. The issue is that fiberglass is hard to deal with, so I'm just going to make steel panels again. And we'll push up to 4. Quality. Go forward. And, alright, let's do this thing. Derpy McDerpson. The truck is done. And I think that's what we'll call this model. Derpy. Derpoo. Kind of like Pingu. Alright. Now, it may be worth our while to make 2 trims, but let's make sure we can afford it first. So we're going to go with 1 shifted rear-wheel drive, keep it red like fireman, and we're going to pretty much make the same engine. Alright, there we have it. Our 17.53% efficient, $600 per year, i3. With push rods. Well, it is a delivery vehicle, as much as it hurts me to say that. That'll do. Note the family sports still loves us. I think that's because there's nothing in the market. Nothing exists in that market yet. We'll take the same 40% base. Break even in 2 years. There we go. I'll sign off on that. It'll cost a bit of money. So, this is now in engineering. While it's in engineering, this is going to stay in production, but when we need to start tooling that factory, this is going to be cancelled. So for now, I think I want to build up a little bit of stockpile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to revise this car to a 90% markup. Now let's see if that won't make it build up some stock. No! It's still so far in demand that people are buying it. That's insane. I've got a 100% markup. Or like, yeah, that'll be above 96%. There we go. Now we're building up some stock, 101 specifically. That's what we want to be doing. Not for any real, in heavy air quotes, real reason, but because we want to have a little bit of buffer to make money while we're waiting on tooling to happen. Alright, play. Keep going. We have till 1953. I think I'll wrap up this episode once we see the first month of production for the Derpy, and we can leave the rest for next time. So this has been cancelled now, and there's our first month of production. We're 34 million down, no sales obviously, have a good market awareness, market size is starting to shrink, And there's our first month. Luxury is starting to correct. Premium is correcting. Normal is correcting. Premium is commercial is correcting a little bit. So we do have a little bit of slump now. It's to be expected. So we sold into commuter, family, family support, heavy delivery, heavy utility, and family utility. We sold all of them, 2,649 cars for $9 million. That's a lot of money. So, with that heartening news, I'm gonna save this game, and I shall see you all next time. Ta-ta!